Truck stops are an essential part of life for long-haul drivers, places where time slows down, offering a brief moment of rest in the relentless rhythm of the road. For families on road trips, they're stops for snacks and fuel, but for others, these transient spaces can be fraught with danger. Beneath the bright lights and bustling traffic, there exists a darker underworld where the vulnerable are often preyed upon and crime can slip by unnoticed. Nashville, Tennessee. Known for its rich history in music, its vibrant nightlife, and its welcoming southern charm. But in the summer of 2007, this city became the epicenter of a chilling discovery. A woman's body was found at a truck stop on the outskirts of town, a grim reminder that violence doesn't discriminate, even in the most vibrant communities. That woman was Sarah Nicole Hulbert, a 25-year-old whose life had been cut tragically short. Her story, like so many others, highlights the challenges faced by those who live on the margins of society. For Sarah's family, her murder was more than just a headline, it was the shattering of their world. Sarah had struggled with addiction and homelessness, but to those who loved her, she was so much more. A sister, a daughter, and a friend. Her death would ignite an investigation that revealed not just a single killer, but a pattern of violence stretching across America's highways. The discovery of Sarah's body at the Nashville truck stop was the first piece of a much larger puzzle. Her body was found near a row of parked trucks, discarded as if her life had no value. Investigators noted the telltale signs of a violent struggle, but the scene offered little in terms of immediate evidence. It was a sobering moment for the officers on site, another life lost, another case to solve. Fortunately, the truck stop had surveillance cameras, a crucial tool in modern investigations. Reviewing the footage, detectives identified a yellow semi-truck entering and leaving the lot around the time of Sarah's murder. The truck's movements were deliberate, almost calculated, raising suspicion. This was the first concrete lead in the case, but finding the truck and its driver would prove to be a daunting task. Truck drivers, like the one behind the wheel of the yellow semi, operate in a vast mobile world. They cross state lines daily, often disappearing into the anonymity of America's highways. For Detective Pat Postiglione, a seasoned investigator with a reputation for tackling Nashville's toughest cases, this was familiar territory. Postiglione knew that the key to solving this case would lie in connecting dots across jurisdictions, an uphill battle that required both persistence and creativity. The investigation eventually led police to Bruce Mendenhall, a long-haul trucker from Illinois. Mendenhall was a father, a husband, and, on the surface, an ordinary man. But his seemingly mundane life masked a horrifying truth. He was a predator who used the vast expanse of America's highways to commit unspeakable acts of violence. When police apprehended Mendenhall and searched his truck, they were met with a gruesome scene. Blood-stained clothing, weapons, and personal items belonging to his victims were found inside. This wasn't just a truck, it was a mobile crime scene. Investigators realized that Sarah Nicole Hulbert was not Bruce Mendenhall's only victim. In fact, her murder was just one in a string of killings that spanned multiple states. As investigators pieced together Mendenhall's movements, a chilling pattern began to emerge. He had used his job as a truck driver to target vulnerable women at truck stops. These were women struggling with addiction or homelessness, women who were often overlooked by society. For Mendenhall, they were easy prey. But his arrogant cheese belief that he could evade justice indefinitely would ultimately be his downfall. Sarah Nicole Hulbert's murder was the first to be tied to Bruce Mendenhall, but it didn't take long for investigators to uncover a pattern that revealed the true extent of his crimes. Sarah was far from the only woman who had fallen victim to his predatory actions. Mendenhall's reign of terror spanned multiple states, leaving a trail of devastation in its wake. Sarah had grown up in Tennessee, where she was known for her quick wit and caring heart. She loved animals, music, and spending time with her family. But like so many others, she faced challenges in adulthood. Struggles with addiction and homelessness brought her to the margins of society, a place where predators like Mendenhall often search for victims. Despite these hardships, Sarah's family remembers her as a vibrant soul with hopes for a better future. Sarah's case was just the beginning. As detectives pieced together Mendenhall's movements, they uncovered an alarming pattern of similar murders across Indiana, Alabama, and other states. Each victim shared a heartbreaking similarity. They were women, struggling with addiction, homelessness, or other vulnerabilities that made them easy targets for a man like Mendenhall. One of these women was Samantha Winters, a mother of 2 from Alabama. Samantha had disappeared one night after being seen at a truck stop. Her body was later found discarded, and her murder remained unsolved for years until DNA evidence linked her death to Mendenhall. Another victim, Karma Purpura, was a 31-year-old from Indianapolis who had been reported missing for weeks before her body was discovered. Like Sarah and Samantha, Karma had dreams and aspirations that were tragically cut short. For the families of these women, the pain of losing their loved ones was compounded by the circumstances of their deaths. Many felt that their voices had been ignored, that their daughters, mothers, and sisters were overlooked because of their struggles. Mendenhall preyed on this very vulnerability, knowing that these women's lives were often dismissed by society. Investigators soon realized that Mendenhall's crimes might extend far beyond what they initially thought. In total, law enforcement connected him to at least 6 murders across several states, but it's likely there were more. Truck stops, with their transient population and lack of consistent oversight, became Mendenhall's hunting ground, a perfect environment for a killer who relied on anonymity and constant movement. Each victim had a story, a life full of potential, and loved ones who mourned their loss. Their names, Sarah Hulbert, Samantha Winters, Karma Purpura, and Mora, deserve to be remembered not for the way their lives ended, but for the light they brought to those around them. Mendenhall's crimes were a stark reminder of the fragility of life and the importance of bringing attention to those often left in the shadows. When Bruce Mendenhall was finally arrested, the case against him seemed overwhelming. Investigators had collected a mountain of evidence's surveillance footage, blood-stained clothing, weapons, and DNA that tied him to multiple crime scenes. But despite the overwhelming proof of his guilt, Mendenhall's defense team argued that the evidence was circumstantial and failed to prove intent. The prosecution, however, painted a much darker picture of a man who used his truck to carry out calculated murders. The first trial focused on the murder of Sarah Nicole Hulbert. Prosecutors meticulously detailed how Mendenhall had lured Sarah to his truck, assaulted her, and ultimately took her life. They presented surveillance footage of his yellow semi-entering and leaving the truck stop, as well as forensic evidence found inside the truck's cab. The jury listened as experts described how Mendenhall's truck had become a mobile crime scene, a place where he felt untouchable. The trial garnered national attention, with media outlets dubbing Mendenhall the highway killer. For Sarah's family, the courtroom was both a place of justice and heartbreak. They sat through days of graphic testimony, reliving the horror of her final moments, but they were determined to see the man responsible held accountable. After weeks of testimony, the jury delivered its verdict, guilty. Mendenhall was sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole for Sarah's murder. For her family, it was a moment of bittersweet closure. Justice had been served, but it couldn't bring Sarah back. Following his conviction in Tennessee, Mendenhall faced additional trials for the murders of Samantha Winters and Karma Purpura. In each case, the evidence was damning, and the outcome was the same: guilty. With each conviction, law enforcement hoped to bring closure to more families, but the true scope of Mendenhall's crimes remained uncertain. As investigators revisited unsolved murders along Mendenhall's routes, They identified numerous cases that bore striking similarities to his known crimes. Though he was only officially charged in a handful of murders, experts believe he may have been responsible for dozens more. For every confirmed victim, there are countless others whose fates remain unknown. For the families of Mendenhall's victims, his life sentence brought some measure of justice, but it could never erase the pain of their loss. Many spoke out about the need for systemic change, urging greater protections for vulnerable individuals and improved safety measures at truck stops. Mendenhall's crimes served as a wake-up call, exposing the gaps in law enforcement communication and the lack of oversight in transient spaces. With Mendenhall behind bars, the roads are a little safer, but the scars he left behind will never fully heal. His sentencing was not just about punishing a killer, it was about honoring the lives of those he took and ensuring that their stories are never forgotten. Mendenhall's crimes exposed a terrifying vulnerability in the world of America's highways. Truck stops, places meant for rest and safety, had become hunting grounds for a predator. His case highlighted the need for increased security measures, better communication between law enforcement agencies, and greater awareness of the dangers faced by society's most vulnerable. Since Mendenhall's arrest, law enforcement agencies have worked to improve their response to crimes involving truck stops. Awareness campaigns and training programs have been implemented to better protect those who frequent these transient spaces. But there is still much work to be done. As we remember the victims of Bruce Mendenhall, let us also remember the countless others who remain missing or whose cases have gone unsolved. Their stories deserve to be told, and their families deserve answers. By sharing their stories, we ensure that their voices are not forgotten. This is the legacy of Bruce Mendenhall, a man whose crimes shocked the nation, but also served as a reminder of the resilience of those left behind. May we honor the victims by continuing to fight for justice and ensuring that their stories live on.